Blaine, you were on Shark Tank recently. What was that experience like?
Yeah, so it doesn't feel so recent to me anymore. It feels like a different lifetime because it was all a little bit of a blur once you're there. It was an overall great experience. It was incredibly anxiety inducing. It was also a great learning opportunity and overall just something that I will remember for the rest of my life.
And you got the deal that you wanted as well.
Yeah, so I took a deal with Mark on the show, but we ultimately didn't close it after the fact.
Okay.
Which was,
Why was
it
it
for the best for everybody.
I would imagine that actually happens more than people realize, right?
Totally, because really what you see on the TV is what happens. Like you're on stage, you're having, you're obviously on stage a little bit longer than your segment airs, but it's maybe 30 or 40 minutes, and that's not enough time to do due diligence, to really talk about what everybody is bringing to the table. So there's just so much that obviously would go into closing any investment, Shark Tank or not, that is mundane and wouldn't make for good TV, but that has to happen before closing a deal.
Yeah, and I know that Barbara was playing matchmaker a little bit in helping that deal come about.
Yes, I thank her for that.
Why was it specifically Mark that you were interested in?
Yeah, I think he is an amazing role model to men of all ages. He really has everything that most of the men I work with are looking for. They want to be successful, they want to be married, they want to have a family, they want to be perceived as a good person with good values, and I think he really hits on all of those points.
Absolutely. Not Kevin O'Leary?
No shade against Kevin, not my man.
Yeah, he hasn't got quite the same level of handsome charm as Mark Cuban, although he is a good content creator as well.
He's amazing. He makes for amazing TV, but I think I'm a little scared of him.
Yeah, I think that's what he's going for.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, you're not the only person on this podcast who's been on Shark Tank. I had Aaron Marino recently, who's been on a couple of times. And I suppose that both you and him are fairly unusual in terms of the types of people that would go on Shark Tank, as in you're not selling a product so much, you're selling a service, and you're selling your coaching program, which is really an industry that's emerged quite recently. When it comes to the whole female versus male dating coach debate, what's your opinion on this? Because some people think that a fish can't teach you how to fish, but other people think that a woman is the perfect person to explain how women work.
Yeah, and what I would ultimately say to that is it's a personal preference. Obviously, there are going to be amazing male dating coaches who teach men, and there's also going to be great female dating coaches who teach men. I think it's more about the content and principles you're teaching rather than, your sex. Although what I will say is, to add to that as well, what makes sense for any one person is personal to them. So there's some guys who might not be comfortable opening up and talking to a female, and so they wouldn't make sense for them to work with a female dating coach. And then there's other men who understand, like, oh, well, by actually talking to a woman who wants these things, it's going to help me when I'm interacting with the women I want to date. So that makes a lot of sense for me. I obviously am a dating coach for men, and I've had thousands of clients who've had amazing results, lots of engagements, marriages, even some babies. So I know what I bring to the table, but if somebody felt like, oh, like a woman can't do it, then I wouldn't even want them to work with me,
Right, yeah. Sense. What do you think it is about a man's perspective when it comes to a dating coach that's valuable that perhaps you don't have?
Yeah, I haven't been through it. I haven't been in the position of being a man who's been rejected by a lot of women, or if you're getting really granular on dates, who's had to be the one leading the date or escalating things physically. So I fully acknowledge that that's something I haven't personally been through, but a lot of the best coaches in the world, as a tennis coach, you can coach somebody who's going to Wimbledon, but doesn't mean you have to have been there yourself. It means you need to see it from their perspective, and then also have the skills and tools in your toolkit, so to say, to guide the person to what they need to do.
I think it's easy to accuse people of being do as I say, not as I do. But then, as you say, the best coaches, the best managers were not always the best players. In fact, they almost never were.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very different skill sets. What's your opinion on the debate between being a single dating coach versus a partnered coach? I wouldn't consider myself a dating coach, but I do talk about dating. And if I'm single at the time, then people will say, well, you don't have a girlfriend, you don't know what it's like, you don't know how to get what we want. Yeah. Then if you have a girlfriend, then people say, well, you're out of the game and you're out of touch.
There's no winning on the internet, right?
Well, that's true, yeah. But somebody told me you could teach blind kittens to read and people will still have a problem.
That's good. That's so true. It's sort of back to what I was saying about man versus woman. I think just because you aren't in a relationship doesn't necessarily mean you couldn't teach people the skills to get into one. Although I would personally, if I was looking at a dating coach and this person was perpetually single, they hadn't had a relationship they hadn't had many relationships, or they hadn't had the type of relationship I was looking for, because people are looking for different things, I would certainly log that as not necessarily not a red flag, but just like something to take into consideration before considering working with them.
I get the sense as well there are different types of dating coaches. Some of them are very focused on as many women as possible, as many dates as possible, more of a pickup type approach. And if you're one of those coaches, then being in a relationship kind of puts you out the game, right? You can't practice and get experience, but your method is more focused on long-term relationships, on building something for the future. Am I right?
Totally, yes.
Yeah. And you're personally married yourself?
I am married, yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned in the Shark Tank segment that it was actually your husband who was helping you figure out how to do the dating coaching thing in the early stages. Well, what were some of your first steps?
Well, it was his suggestion to take my coaching and put it into a course. So that's really what I brought to Shark Tank, was my course business. It was my entire business, but that's what makes it interesting and scalable from a business perspective, is a course is one-to-many instead of one-to-one, like one-on-one coaching would be. And in 2020, when the pandemic hit, I had been working in the travel industry, and that business essentially came to a halt. And I'd been doing some coaching, and I'd helped my friends with dating coaching. And so it was my husband who suggested, why not take everything you're teaching and talking about to these one-on-one clients and put it in a course so you can reach more people at a lower price point. And so that was really the aha moment, and really what allowed me to take, dating coaching from sort of like a fun thing I did on the side to a growing business, scalable business.
Yeah. What role has social media played with that? Because I noticed that people probably have seen you in your car if they've seen you on social media, especially with those short form videos.
Yeah.
What started to work for you and take off?
Yeah, so social media is the reason I have a business today. I would not have a business if it wasn't for Instagram and if it wasn't for social media, and if I hadn't taken that leap back in 2020. That's how I find my customers. A lot of my customers are organic Instagram traffic. So it's played a huge role in my journey, and really allowed me to reach more people who I can help.
How does a man come to realize that he needs a dating coach, or that his dating life is at the point where he needs to buy a course? And I don't mean to say that in a derogatory way, but obviously, with weight loss or something like that, there's kind of a number, and you go, okay, this needs fixing. Yeah, what about love?
I think it has to come from the person who's looking to change. It's like with anything, you have to want to change. You have to want to put in the work. Just because someone in your life says, oh, you should lose 20 pounds, or like you should really like get healthy, that's not what's going to lead you to do it. It's going to be that internal aha moment. And that's different for everybody. Sometimes it's getting ghosted by a woman they thought they were really compatible with, or just sick of not getting matches online, or they turn, 30 or 40 or 25 or whatever that number is for them, and they're like, wow, I haven't had a serious girlfriend. This is something that's important to me. I'm going to invest time here. So that's a little bit for everyone, different for everybody, but the key thing is that it comes from the person who wants to change. I get, especially after Shark Tank, it was funny, I got so many emails from parents who wanted to buy the course for their children.
Wow.
Say, oh, my son, like, he's a great kid, but he really doesn't, he's not having luck with the ladies. I want him to find love.
How old are we talking?
Any age. I would say as young as early 20s and as old as like 40. I mean, maybe past that, although I think parents at that point like aren't maybe like tech savvy enough to figure out how to email me to ask to sign up their children. But obviously they're doing it out of wanting the best for their kid or whoever, their friend, even a friend's siblings have done it. And my answer is always the same, that unless that's like very sweet of you, very kind, but unless this person is the one who wants it and is the one who's wants to make meaningful change, this is not worth the investment. You can absolutely, you could suggest it to them, you could offer to pay for it, but I honestly find people whose parents pay for it don't ever seem to be as dedicated as the ones who pay for it themselves.
Right.
Because sometimes parents do end up buying it for their kids, and I've just seen it with one-on-one coaching. The parent makes this big investment. It's just different when you're the one who spent your hard-earned money on it.
I feel like that's almost like an arranged marriage, or the modern day equivalent of, we've got to get our son married today. I always think with certain gifts, there's an underlying insult with gifts. If somebody buys you new clothes and you don't really like clothes, you go, oh, you're trying to tell me something? My style sucks. This would be like, oh, thanks, Mom. I'm so bad with the ladies that you had to buy this course for me.
This definitely falls into that category, and it's well-meaning, of course, but yeah.
With dating, I like to see it in a very cold and cynical way. The romantic stuff we'll talk about later, but on the cold, cynical side, we basically have product and we have advertising, right? Some guys are great products, but they don't know how to advertise. Some people, like Mystery, the old pickup artist, terrible product, great advertiser. What do you see men are struggling with the most? Or do you see that different types of men have different problems?
Yeah, I talk a lot about dating being a marketing problem, and that is the case for a lot of my clients. They already have a great job, they have interesting hobbies, and things that they enjoy outside of work, they have good relationships with friends and family, and their problem is marketing that to the women that they are interested in, so those women see them as boyfriend material, not just like a nice guy. That being said, sometimes it is a product problem. Sometimes you are a little rough around the edges, and investing in your health or your life outside of work or leveling up at work is what needs to happen before you even start marketing yourself differently. So it's a little bit different for everybody, but I would say the majority of my clients are at least, there's always room for improvement, but are at least solid on the product side. And what they really come to me with is like, okay, how do I authentically market myself to women so they see what I have?
Even though we have more opportunities to market ourselves today, we basically all have online advertising for our love life. People seem to be struggling with that more than ever.
Yeah.
Do you think that's just because society is less social?
I think that's a few things. I would say most people aren't marketers. You're not inherently born knowing how to market yourself, especially in this world where to your point you just made, you're expected to be an online marketer. That's really hard. So expecting people to know how to do that is unrealistic. So that's part of it. And then the other, that's why, where I come into play, I help you build your dating app profile. I teach you how to text in a way that is attractive and how to talk about yourself. And then also, I don't necessarily think more choices makes things easier. So we now are in this global world where dating has become global. You have access to literally anybody, anywhere. And that doesn't necessarily make people more inclined to stick with any one relationship or pursue any one thing, because they have this misconception, frankly, that the grass is greener and there's always somebody better just one swipe away or one click away or one DM away.
Okay, I want to go down a rabbit hole here because this is something I'm thinking about a bit. How much choice is too much choice and how much choice is too little? Because I'm a 26-year-old bachelor living in a very big city, and I actually said to myself that 2025 I was going to go on a date a week, and I was really going to figure out the kind of person that I wanted. Now, by the time I edit this and release it, I might have, this might be over already. But I met somebody on New Year's Eve actually that I really had a great connection with, and I thought, damn, this has kind of scuppered my plans, but I'm really excited about this person. So what would you say to somebody who's trying to navigate how much choice is the right amount, and when do I just begin spoiling myself with options and being indecisive?
Yeah, that's a really good question and certainly nuanced to each individual situation. I'm actually a big fan and I encourage my clients to date multiple women early on. If you meet a woman you're excited about, don't immediately delete the apps and stop planning other dates, because that's going to lead to emotional overinvestment in her, most likely. You're going to put more pressure on the situation, you're going to expect more from her, where if you know you've got good options and other people kind of in your funnel, so to say, is that a Negroni?
No, it's actually a Shirley Temple. I don't drink.
Okay.
It's just like, I know this is like the fanciest soft drink. Yeah, I just have a Negroni at 1 o'clock while recording a podcast.
I was impressed. I didn't know if it was a prop. Great. Okay, good. I mean, if you do, good for you. I love a Negroni.
That's my fifth Negroni. Blaine.
Like, you're holding it together really well. What was I saying?
The dating thing. Sorry, where were we?
So I encourage men to date multiple women at once early on, because it helps you not emotionally overinvest in any one woman. That being said, once you're to the point of being excited about somebody, like, it's okay to invest there. It's okay to spend more time there, especially if you've mutually agreed to be exclusive. So for you, I wouldn't say to throw out your goal of going on one date a week. And maybe you don't go on one even new date a week, because maybe you meet another woman in week 2 of the new year who you're interested in. So you go on second or third dates with both of those women in the 3rd or 4th week of the new year. You don't always have to be adding more top of funnel.
Yeah, I think that's probably my approach, and I still have the apps. It gets very expensive though. Dating one person alone is expensive. Dating 2 people gets to that point as well. When it comes to first dates, I like the classic date. The table for 2, the Italian restaurant. For me, that just really works. But for a lot of guys, it doesn't. And for a lot of women, it doesn't. When it comes to rewriting the script of what a first date should be, what are some of the ideas that you like to give your clients?
Yeah, so it's really dependent on where you meet. Like, for example, you said you met this woman on New Year's. I don't know the story, but let's just say you meet on New Year's through mutual friends. You hang out all night. You maybe even share a New Year's kiss. You've texted a bit since. You already know that you're going to enjoy having dinner with this person. There is some sort of vibe. There's chemistry. You guys can chat. Okay, take her to dinner. That can be a great first date, especially if that's where you feel like you thrive and you're comfortable with. That being said, if you met this woman on the internet and she is a stranger, why invest in dinner? That's too long. What if she sucks? What if there's just no connection? You know, you touched on this. It gets very expensive sitting down in a big city like Chicago, a sit-down dinner. So instead of, committing to something maybe longer than you want to be there or more expensive than you want to invest, go do something casual. Go to a dive bar, grab a cocktail, get tapas, go to a food truck. It obviously depends on the season and the time of year. But doing something inexpensive and short as a first date is actually really what I recommend, because it's really just a vibe check. Count it as date, especially if you met online, it's date 0. And then date 1 is actually the second time you meet, once you've both made sure you're at least initially interested.
Yeah, I always think of the first date, if we've already met in person, it's kind of like the second date. Obviously, it depends how long you interacted for, but typically I don't meet that many people on dating apps. I actually meet people in person.
I love that.
It tends to be at a bar environment. So we may have already spoken for an hour or 2, and then I feel confident that, okay, we're going to go for dinner now. I will actually enjoy this.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. When it comes to the dating app matches, personally, I find it quite hard to be excited about those dates, and I'm sure some guys do as well, especially when you're encouraging guys to go on a consistent amount of dates and date multiple women. Do they get to the point where they just feel a bit fatigued by the whole first date process?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true for both men and women, and which is why I never encourage people to only date online, because I feel like most people do think of it as a necessary evil. It is a good top of funnel channel to utilize to get more dates, but you're never as excited about a date with a stranger from the internet as you are with somebody who you've met in line and already established some sort of connection. So it's not that online dating can't work or you shouldn't do it, but I really, really, really recommend you use it as almost like a added bonus to an in-person strategies for meeting people to go on dates with.
Kind of like LinkedIn. You don't rely on it for your entire job search, but it's nice to have.
Exactly. That's a great analogy.
Yeah. With your clients, what percentage of their dates, their top of funnel dates come through from dating apps? Because I'm sure you do a lot of work with them to improve their experience with that versus the in-person.
Oh, it'd be so dependent on any one person because what I say is very different than what people choose to do. But what I recommend is like roughly 20% of your effort dating goes to online and 80% of your efforts go to offline.
And in that 20%, do we spend a lot of time swiping on people trying to find the right person, or do we focus our energy on making our own profile and our own advertisements as attractive as possible?
More the second. Online dating, when I say that 80-20, it takes more upfront investment. It's more upfront work. You need to get your great photos. You need to build a great profile. But once you have that profile built, swipe, 5 minutes a day or, spend half an hour to an hour a week on the dating app. But the way you are going to get results is not by more swiping, dumping more money into the dating app. I think that's the thing a lot of guys get wrong is they spend more time and more money rather than actually upgrading their profile, which is something that is going to move the needle more in improving their online dating prospects than just swiping more.
Yeah. I changed my Bumble to interested in men so that I could see what men's dating app profiles look like. And these were gay guys, so they probably theoretically were better than straight men's and still absolutely abysmal efforts. So many car selfies with sunglasses. So many the same photo again and again, like here's me and the guys, here's me and the guys, here's me and the guys, where's Waldo? If somebody's listening to this and they're thinking, this could be me, what are some common mistakes that you typically see on a dating app profile?
I have a course that's solely focused. It's called Online Dating OS, that is solely focused on helping men improve their dating app profiles because this is such a big problem. And the number one thing is just getting the photos wrong. Because really, if you get the photos wrong, nothing else matters. If you have low quality photos, if you can't tell what you look like, you could have the best prompts in the world, but nobody's even going to be reading them because they will have already swiped no.
How much do prompts matter, and how much do they matter in relation to your handsomeness? Because I think that a lot of guys think, well, if you're a 10 out of 10, then it doesn't matter if your prompt is I like cereal, you're going to get matches. Is that true?
That's probably true in both sexes. There's a certain level of attractiveness that you're not going to have to put in a lot of effort, and people are going to take a chance on you just to see if they can match or see how things progress. But for 99% of people out there, your prompts matter. Thinking it from a man's perspective, or like as a man on a dating app, okay, your photo is what's going to get her, your first photo is what's going to get her to pause on your profile. So that needs to be great. That's okay. She pauses. Now she's going to scroll down and glance at the rest of your photos. If they pass her threshold of what is appropriate, okay, now she's reading your prompts. Okay, once she's read your prompts, if those intrigue her or those, you've clearly put some effort in, something catches her eye there, okay, it's a yes. If your prompts suck, or you say something offensive, or you say something that indicates you aren't a good fit for her, then she's going to say no. So the photos are essentially what get her to slow down and look, and then oftentimes the prompts are what is going to get her to swipe right. Or at the very least, once you're having a conversation and you ask her out, she's going to go back and look at the prompts more closely, even if she hadn't initially.
I hadn't thought about that. I suppose there are two stages you have to pass, really. You have to pass the initial, I'm interested in this guy, let's match, and then, oh, he's asked me to coffee, let's double check this before I commit. Totally. Is that why sometimes, I've heard this a lot, and I've had this happen to me many times too, you chat a little bit, going fairly well, you ask them on the date, never hear from them again. What do you think's going on there?
So there's so much that goes on there, and that's certainly one of the reasons. Maybe she does a double take and doesn't like what she sees. I think more often than not, it's probably something unrelated to you. Maybe, well, okay, the profile is a possibility. Also, maybe you asked too quickly, you didn't create enough connection or trust first. That's a possibility. And then the third possibility, and the one that I think is very likely, is it has nothing to do with you. She got busy. She started dating somebody. She just decided she didn't want to go out with you through no fault of your own, which is why it is imperative that you don't let online dating dictate how you feel about yourself or your dating life. I see guys get this wrong all the time. They're down, they're in their feelings, they feel like unworthy because they've gotten ghosted from a girl online, or they're not getting that many matches, and like that is putting your validation in the hands of somebody you don't even know. She could be a total loser with no interests, no intelligence, rocks for brains, and you're letting her tell you how to feel about yourself.
This comes back to the product issue. If your product is half empty and incomplete, you're going to put that validation in somebody else.
Yeah, and if you have a great product that you feel really confident about, you're going to be a lot less likely to do that.
Yeah, that's true. Talking about asking for the date on a dating app, I have a friend who just goes straight in, ask for the date, first message. Personally, I like to wait at least 6 or so messages, maybe 5 or 6. Depends what the vibe is, for want of a better word. What's your general guidelines on asking for a date?
I'm more in your camp than your friends. I guess, if you go for it instantly, like he's suggesting, you could send more of those messages. So in terms of it being a numbers game and being able to move quickly, I guess that would be true there. But I think you're going to more likely lead to dates if you take some time, send a few messages, show that you have things in common, that there is some mutual connection and trust built, and then go for the date. And also, depending on the quality of your profile, you might need more or less messages. The better your profile is, it can do a lot of the heavy lifting for you, as opposed to if your profile is so, she might feel like she needs to get to know you a little bit more or learn more about you before she says yes.
I suppose from a woman's perspective, and tell me if this is correct or not, she is getting invited on many more dates than she could possibly even go on. Right? So if you just message straight away, let's go on a date, she's thinking, well, yeah, I know you want to go on a date with me, but this is stage 2 now. Let's see what you're made of.
Why you?
Yeah, exactly. So what are some of those reasons that guys can give them? Give the women to, okay, you've matched with me and 100 other guys this week. This is why me. This is why I'm your dinner date tonight.
Yeah, so I think the number one thing that guys get wrong is having the same conversation as everybody else. So if she's looking at 100 plus profiles, how are you going to stand out? If you ask her, how was your weekend? Or, hey, how are you? That's super boring and it's what everybody else is asking. But if you ask her something that's actually interesting, something personal to her that you've picked up on from her profile, something she actually wants to talk about, she's going to be much more likely to at least consider a date with you and then ultimately say yes. Also, can you make her laugh? Can you say something that's going to make her smile? That's not to say that that's easy online, but if you can do that, she's going to be way more likely to go on a date with you.
And where do we find ideas and clever things to say to somebody in those opening messages?
In my online course, Texting OS, I provide a lot of concrete examples of this. But no, in all seriousness, your messages, like, that's the thing so many men want. They want the
just message her this, and
they want that one secret line that they can use when they message or when they approach a woman that's going to get every woman to say yes to them, and that doesn't exist, because the best lines or the best messages are going to be personal to who she is. So that requires looking at her profile. That I'm not saying, invest heavily, spend an hour trying to figure out what to say, but do look at her, refer back to her profile, look at things in her photos that other people might not have noticed, things that you might have in common that she doesn't have in common with other guys. Maybe she has a photo that looks like it's at Lake Como and you went to Lake Como for your sister's wedding last year. Okay, there's something you can ask her about and talk about and connect over. Look for those things that are going to be, again, segues into conversations that she actually wants to have.
I'll give somebody some hope for the power of the first message. When I met a previous girlfriend of mine, this was about 3 years ago now, she actually told me while we were in a relationship that when I first saw your profile, I didn't think you were quite up to my usual standard of attractiveness, but your opening message was so good.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, exactly.
What was your opening message?
Well, I'll give you the context. So in her photos, a lot of them were clearly in her home, and she had so many houseplants. And then in her bio, she wrote, "I've named all my houseplants." So I messaged her saying, "What's your meanest looking plant and what's its name?" And then she sent me like a paragraph back explaining the name of the plant.
And that's exactly what I just described, right? That's not in a line that any guy can just use. If some guy listening uses that on some random girl, she's gonna be like, what? Unmatch? It was personal to her and something that she's clearly passionate about and wants to speak about.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
Are there some things that guys think are unique, but they're really not? I think one of those things is travel. A lot of people will talk about travel on their dating app profile, and yeah, sure, travel's interesting, but also most young Americans living in cities are traveling quite a lot.
Yeah.
Are there any other things that people think are special, but really it's just, oh God, not another one?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of prompts that people think they're like being quite clever with that if she's seen it before, it's not clever, it's not going to stand out. So like saying like, oh, something I really want to do this year is travel more. No, wrong. Like to your point, she's already seen it, which is why specificity is really key here. If you say something I really want to do this year is go skiing into Japan, find the best ramen and visit the hot springs, like, okay, that's much more interesting. You're still communicating that you're interested in traveling, but now you actually have something that's like worth talking about or connecting over. So that's just kind of an aside. Other like the prompt that's or you somehow saying like my personal nightmare is like marrying into a family who runs a 5K on Thanksgiving. Like, okay, like that's just like not that unique, and people always say that. What's something I'm super competitive about? Everything. What do I order for the table? Everything. There's some of these really like basic, boring prompts that men and women say they like are constantly seeing.
One that I see on female profiles all the time is how I spend Sunday rotting in bed. Which,
rotting in bed.
Firstly, is like a very unattractive image.
Yeah.
But secondly, yeah, I'd say out of the ones that use that prompt, it's never, I wake up early, I read the Bible, I make some sourdough bread. It's no, I'm rotting in bed, I'm hungover as shit.
Yeah, I hate that visual. Even if you is that really how you want to be perceived?
Yeah. Talking of perceptions, I think that if you truly are a man who has an interesting life, you're varied, you're quite good looking, you can either go and be very unique and specific, or you can try and appeal to more of a mass market of women. And I probably previously used to take more of a generic approach, whereas now I'm so happy with my life and who I am that if somebody doesn't like my bizarre quirks and traits, like even the way I dress, then all right, not the right person for me. Where do you think people should find that balance for them?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because if you're struggling to get... So first of all, overall, like when you're deciding who to date, absolutely be your authentic self and don't date people who don't appreciate you for you. Don't change, But top of funnel online dating, if you're not getting a lot of matches, narrowing the type of people who you're going to match with by saying something controversial or something that's going to turn a lot of women off is not the way to go. I would say cast a wider net and then narrow as you get to know them. So an example of that might be putting a photo of you with a gun on your profile or calling out your political beliefs. If that's something that's so important to you that you could never get along with someone who didn't agree with you, like, okay, put that on. But that's not the case for 90% of people. There's a lot of nuance that goes into beliefs, like religious, political, or even like just some controversial preferences, where a woman might be very open to dating a guy who has a gun or shoots guns, but is going to be turned off by him opening with that in his profile. So don't narrow the type of people you want to match with early on if you're not already getting a lot of matches.
Yeah.
Women, on the other hand, are the rare guy who gets more matches than he knows what to do with, might want to, I call it a qualifier, put something on their profile that is going to turn off some amount of people that is important to them, to make sure that they are, or to just help narrow down who they're engaging with.
Yeah, it sounds like you definitely have some very Texas-specific dating profiles going on there.
Yeah, I guess so. That's more of a Texas thing, but I actually...
No, there are versions of it though. Like
Yeah.
one thing that I hear women complain about is the fish photo.
Yeah, exactly. That certainly falls into that category. But like, if you love fishing and that's a big part of your life, put that fish photo up there. Like, use it.
Yeah, I think the fish photo often comes about because it's one of the rare times it's
Someone
acceptable.
took a photo.
It's acceptable for a man to say to another man, "Can you take a photo of me?" without
Totally.
them being embarrassed by it.
Totally. It's just like, it's the photo they happen to have, not the photo that represents like them and how they spend their time, which is something what you want in your profile, not just, oh, I happen to have this photo with a fish.
Right. Do you recommend that people go on to do somewhat of a photo shoot for their dating app and actually curate these photos specifically?
So yeah, I do recommend it if you need it. There are some guys don't need it. They have a lot of photos of themselves. They take photos of themselves. Their friends take photos of themselves. Those guys are usually more rare, frankly. Most guys are like, I don't have any good photos, in which case go out and hire a pro and take a couple pro photos. And I think that can really be an asset in your profile. Do you want your whole pro? And I know I'm going to get comments, oh my God, that's going to look so try hard. That's going to look ridiculous. I'm not saying all 6 of your photos are professionally staged photos, but a good photographer, and a lot of photographers specialize in dating app photos at this point, are going to be able to help you get a few candid, organic looking, but really high quality, nice photos, and using anywhere 1, 2, maybe 3 max in your profile can really make all the difference in the world.
Do you think that some guys have the problem where they are too try hard? Because I've had people give me their Instagram and they want feedback, and when I look at it, I go, this guy has watched a lot of YouTube high status Instagram guide videos. Do you ever encounter that problem with dating apps or people who are trying to use social media to attract women?
Yeah, I think what people usually get wrong and that fall into that category is they're trying too hard to impress the other person, like the potential viewer, as opposed to authentically sharing about themselves. So they want the person to think they're rich and think they do cool things. And I think that's when what you're describing as being too try hard is a problem. Putting in effort is not a problem. Like, you should put an effort to your dating app profile. If finding a partner is something that's important to you, like investing some money and time into making sure that it's representative of who you are and is going to attract the people you want to attract, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, well, it's potentially the most important advertisement you'll ever create, because I think everybody agrees that the person you marry, that person you choose, is the most important decision you ever make. A lot of people, as a result, don't want to meet that person on a dating app. It doesn't fit their fairy tale of how they met their wife or their husband. I think both men and women are guilty of this. For the men that feel that way, do you think they need to just get over that and get into the modern world?
So it's a bit like what I said before. It's a necessary evil. I think it's a great way to get in front of more people you wouldn't otherwise meet. I don't think you have to online date, though, to have a successful dating life. My thoughts are more along the lines of if dating and finding the one is something that's important to you, then why not try multiple avenues?
Right.
And I would rather see someone say, oh, no, I don't want to online date, I'm just putting all my effort in person, than the reverse, which is like, I can't meet people in person, I'm just going to spend all my time online dating. So there's no right or wrong there, but in my mind, it's like, if this is something that you want to prioritize, why put all your eggs in any one basket?
I think people have the problem of compartmentalizing as well, of I'm not on dating apps, so therefore, I can't meet people that way. Or if people are on the apps, then they are more closed-minded to the opportunities that happen in daily life.
Totally.
When it comes to the people who are going the in-person route or in-person along with dating apps, what are some of the classic ways that people used to meet? And do they still exist? Are they still successful?
Yeah, I think all the ways that people used to meet are still viable options. They're just happening less because people are getting lazy, and the path of least resistance feels like sitting at home on their couch and swiping. So they're less likely to put themselves out there to spend time outside of their house, because you literally don't have to for anything you do. You can press a few buttons and your food comes to your door. You can stream anything on your TV. You don't have to leave your house for the things that you used to have to leave your house for.
Yeah.
So it's not that it's not possible, it's just that people are doing it less.
Right, and you don't have to. It's like we have to go to the gym now because life is not physically challenging.
Yeah.
And I think we're going that way socially now, with guys work from home and they go, well, I've got to go to the coffee shop for a while to get my social interaction. And I'm like guilty of that too.
Yeah, and I mean, I would love to hear guys saying I have to go to this coffee shop to get out of my house, but I think unfortunately the problem is people aren't even doing that because they don't have to. So it's like you work from home, you get your food delivered to home, your groceries get delivered to home, maybe you even work out at home. And next thing you know, you haven't left your apartment in a week, and you haven't talked to anybody new, and you haven't met anybody, and that's not how we're meant to be living. And it's certainly not how you're going to meet a partner.
Absolutely. Do you think that approaching people and being able to talk to women confidently is a matter of practice?
It's definitely a learnable skill. Practicing it is absolutely key, but it's like if you're not practicing the right things, then you're not necessarily going to get great results.
Okay.
So dating is absolutely a numbers game. Approaching is a numbers game. But if you're approaching and you're doing something that's going to turn off 100% of women, then approaching more women isn't actually going to help you.
Right.
Refining your approach and changing how you do things is first needs to happen. And then you still need to approach a lot of women. My
philosophy, just for me personally, and obviously this is just a free coaching session for me. No, I'm kidding. I have the opinion of I don't like to approach a lot of women personally because I don't actually see that many women that I'm attracted to. And I don't want to go and waste people's time getting their number if I'm never going to call them. But I like to be in the place where I feel like whenever I do see somebody that I'm attracted to and I do want to approach them, I always can. Right? And for me, I'm able to go quite a long time without doing that. And then I see somebody like the person I met on New Year's Eve. I approached her. She was sitting by herself at the bar. I said, do you want to come join my friends and I? And she said to me afterwards, she was like, I bet you do that all the time. And I said, I don't actually, but maybe, because I did it confidently, you get that impression that it's just from practice.
So I love that you did that, first of all. And I think that could work for some guys. But what I would also say is, like, just because you approach or talk to somebody, you actually shouldn't approach being like, oh, I want to get her phone number. You should approach being with the mindset of, I want to see if I want to get her phone number. Because that does a couple things. One is like you're not distracted by this end goal and you're actually spending the time getting to know her. And two, if you come at it from wanting something from her, that is going to oftentimes show through in your interactions, as opposed to like, hey, I'm high status, I've got a lot of options, I want to make sure she's worthy of me, flips the script and can avoid either rejection if it doesn't make sense to ask her out, and just allows you to remain in control. And a lot of guys don't have the ability to just approach one hot woman a month and be really confident in it. They need to practice more. And so I like to say, like, just because you approach somebody doesn't mean you're romantically interested in them. So just practicing talking to more people generally can be really helpful. Talk to the barista at your coffee shop. Chat with the person in line behind you, get those human interactions, those human touches, so that when you do see the attractive woman that you want to talk to, it's not the first person you've talked to in a month that you don't know, because you're much more likely to freeze up in that case.
I think that's a great point, because personally, I will talk to the fat old man in the sauna. I will talk to the cashier.
Even so you are just doing before, that, yeah.
Yeah, even before that interaction, I was actually talking to like a 70-year-old woman sat next to me. So I suppose, you keep that muscle hot. It just doesn't have to be.
Yes, exactly. As opposed to like someone who's maybe more introverted or less confident than you is literally talking to nobody outside of the people that they maybe already know. And then they want to approach a beautiful woman, and it's no wonder that they feel anxious or they're not sure what to say because it's the first time they're doing it.
I think a lot of men could benefit from stopping seeing women, especially beautiful women, as this bizarre alien species.
Yeah.
Because they really are just the same as the old woman who's serving you in the supermarket just 50 years before.
Yeah, and I think that's a key to successful approaching, and kind of what I just touched on before is you need to approach and treat them like a person and like anyone else you would chat to. If you're putting them on a pedestal and treating them differently, that's going to come out in your interactions and it's going to be unattractive.
Right. So you were talking about practicing the wrong thing. What are some of those wrong things that you could approach 100 women a day, but if you're not doing it in the right way, never going to work?
Yeah, so the first thing that anyone is going to take into account as you approach them is your physical appearance. That's just the way it is. You know, it is a superficial world, so if you don't look the part, if you're wearing sloppy clothes, if you don't look well kept, if you're not standing in a confident way, your shoulders are rolled in, you've already rejected yourself, that's going to be an automatic no, most likely, for most women. And that doesn't mean you have to look as snazzy as you look right now or look like a GQ model, but you should be wearing clothes that are clean and tidy and fit you appropriately. You should be standing up straight. You should be holding eye contact confidently. You should have a smile on your face. You should have brushed your teeth. Some of those basic things are going to be the first thing that she takes into account, and also the first thing that can potentially rule you out. Next is going to be, okay, what's coming out of your mouth? And I think something guys get wrong, and I touched on this before with even online messaging, is they think they have to have the perfect script or the perfect one-liner or witty opener. And that's not necessarily the case. You can literally say something super simple like, hey, I just noticed you from over there, and I'd kick myself later if I didn't come say hello. Hi, my name is... Super simple. You can use that in any environment. If it's delivered with confidence, you're opening a conversation. Your next line then is not, can I get your phone number? That's a mistake guys make as well, rushing it. You now need to have a little bit of a conversation to establish if you want her phone number and also if she wants yours. So the more trust and connection you can build right there. It's sort of like the balance with the dating apps, like not too long, not too short. It's like the Goldilocks. You need to have it just right. And that's going to be a little bit different for everybody than asking for her number if it feels appropriate.
Yeah. Let's use the situation of a coffee shop or a bar, because this wouldn't really work on the streets. But do you feel that there ought to be some kind of signal of interest from the woman before a man approaches, if it's in a situation where that would be possible?
Yeah, so that's like gold standard green light. Amazing. Can you catch her eyes? Can you smile at her and get a smile back? Okay, go for it 100%. Like, amazing. That's not always possible, and it's not always going to happen. I hear from guys all the time, that's never happening. I'm never catching someone's eye contact.
Yeah.
Okay, that doesn't mean you can't approach. It might just mean you need to build a little more trust through conversation before asking for her phone number.
Do you think there are things that men can do to increase their chances of being noticed by women? Because I understand that for many men, they just feel like they're invisible to women. What can people change? I suppose it's mostly physical that will increase them being noticed by women.
Look good. Take care of yourself. Hit the gym. Make sure your clothes fit well. I think like the pickup artist community will give advice like, oh, you need to wear something crazy, like a crazy hat. Yeah. And that's totally not necessary. If you are just holding yourself with confidence, you have your head up, you're looking around, you're looking to make eye contact rather than looking down and looking at your phone, you're actually going to be ahead of a lot of the guys out there.
Yeah, that's a very good point you made about actually looking around and being available to make eye contact with. Sometimes that happens to me where I accidentally make eye contact with people that I really didn't want to, and then they start looking back at you. You go, God, I've totally given out the wrong signal here.
That's better than the alternative, and I feel like most people probably have the opposite problem where they're never looking up because everyone's looking at their phone.
Exactly. The first thing I say is, and I'm a big advocate for single guys, if you don't have a group of friends that you can go out with, go out by yourself. American culture is perfect for this. We have the bar, you can sit there, right? But if you're on your phone, you may as well not be there.
Yeah, you may as well be at home.
Exactly. I really enjoy people watching as well. So I'm always staring at people. Even if I'm in a relationship, we'll be playing it together. I wonder how their date's going. I wonder how they met.
Yeah.
Let's move on to. Oh yeah, this is a tricky topic. Height. A lot of men get hung up on this one. What's the solution? Is it lifted shoes?
So, listen, there are going to be women out there who don't like guys for any height. You could find a woman who is going to not be interested in dating you no matter how tall or short you are.
Yeah.
What is up to the man is how much they let that affect them. So I'm not going to say that short guys don't have additional challenges. They absolutely do. It just means the other aspects of what they bring to the table become more important. So the more you let it get in your head that being short is holding you back, the more it is actually going to hold you back. The less you care about it and the less you let it play into your psyche at all, the less women are going to care about it. And forget the women who aren't going to date you because you're short, if that's, or you're whatever height you are.
I heard a really great interview where they touched on this, where it was, I don't know if you know Graham Stephan, the YouTuber, and then it was Jason Oppenheimer from the Oppenheimer Group, Selling Sunset. And I think Graham is 5'3", and Jason is about 5'6", but incredibly successful with the ladies. And they were talking about it, and he just said, "I've never even let it bother me. Like I've never considered it to be a problem," and that's why for him it hasn't been. I think that's difficult though. I think that's difficult. I'm 6'2", so I've never had that problem. But even the other week, actually, I had one woman say, "It's not that tall. Like I prefer guys who are around 6'7". I was thinking, you should just go watch the NBA then, But I think she was just trying to knock me down a peg, to be honest.
Yeah.
Aside from height seems to be the one thing that guys fixate on of like, oh man, I'm 5'5", I'm screwed. What are some other things that people... No, go on. I
was going to say one call out there is that online dating is more challenging for guys who are on the shorter side because you're getting filtered out. So if a woman sets a filter 5'8" or 5'10" and above, they aren't even seeing your profile. So that is just another reason to get offline, become confident in person, and meet people that way.
Yeah, and I think people are more delusional when it comes to online dating than they would be in person. Because the filters, people don't walk around with the number on their head.
Exactly.
5'6", yeah. No. And people can seem taller than they really are because they have that magnetism. They have that presence.
I was looking at a friend's dating app profile. This was a long time ago before I was doing this full time. And I was like, why does it say you're 5'7"? And he was like, what? And I was like, your height is wrong. And he was like, I'm 5'7". And I was like, you are? And I literally known this person for a decade. And I'm 5'10". I almost. Okay. So I'm really tall. Yeah. And I was like, it had never even crossed my mind because he had such a big personality, because he was so confident. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I remember I used to be a mainstream journalist, and when I would meet celebrities, I was always shocked that they weren't massively tall. I remember when I saw Khloe Kardashian for the first time in person, in my mind, she was just like this 6 foot tall Amazon woman. And then, she's really petite, because people have this power, this kind of magnetism in their minds.
Well, her sisters are also tiny and short, which makes her look bigger.
Right, that's true. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, so the height thing is one thing that guys get really hung up on, and it can be seen as like a bit of a black pill, right? Just that red mark, I'm done. What are some other things that people consider to just be a huge factor in dating?
I feel like that's truly the biggest one, that is like the misconception.
Yeah.
But you hear like the 666 rule, like they have to be 6 feet tall and you have to make 6 figures. And you have to have 6-pack abs. And I feel like that's very like...
There's another 6, I believe.
Yeah, 6 inches. That people fixate on. And I truly feel like anything you are telling yourself that is holding you back dating, whether it's one of those things or something else, especially things physically, it only is going to hold you back as much as you let it. You might have something unique to you that does make the pool of women who are interested in you smaller. I'm not discrediting that as a possibility, but especially with the access to the internet and online dating and social media, even if you have something that makes the pool of women who you could be compatible with very, very, very narrow, that's probably still thousands of women that you could find or have access to.
How much of a role do you think money plays in it, both from a woman's perspective and a man's personal confidence?
Yeah, so I think from the man's personal confidence, it's sort of like height. You can let it play into everything, and you can totally let it dictate how you value yourself and your worth, or you can not care and, be super confident, have a thriving dating life, even if you're frankly unemployed, if you bring other important things to the table.
Yeah.
In terms of what women care about, I'm not going to say women don't care about money. They absolutely do. From an evolutionary perspective, if a woman is thinking about procreating with you, she's taking a massive risk. This is even something that would be thought about on a subconscious level. She needs to believe that the person she is going to procreate with is going to be able to provide, is going to stick around, is going to be able to take care of her and a baby. And that's obviously some dumbing down and very simplifying something that is a complex thought.
Yeah.
But really taking it back to caveman days, even then it's like, okay, how rich you are was how many resources you had, and resources are important. So I'm not saying money doesn't matter, but how much it matters is going to be really dependent on the woman. There are plenty of women out there who are going to say, oh, I will only date a guy who makes 6 figures. Oh, hell, I'll only date a guy who makes 7 figures a year.
Yeah.
But then there's plenty of women out there who would be so happy with somebody who has a modest income, but has shared values and wants to travel the world with them and is fun to be around. The most important indicator, I think, of success that guys underrate is, what is it like? How does it feel to spend time around you?
Oh,
if it feels great to spend time around you and you make her laugh and you make her feel good, I don't care how tall you are. I don't care how much money you have. You're going to do fine with the ladies.
Mm-hmm. My date the other week said something during the first date that I loved. She said, she was actually talking about an experience she'd had where a guy had turned up to a date in the Lamborghini. He was talking about his assets during the date.
Ugh.
And she said, listen, women want what money can't buy. And she didn't really elaborate on that, but I think you just explained it perfectly. Those are the things that money cannot provide. And when it comes to the provider, as you said, what a woman sees as stability and being provided for could be 50 grand a year and health insurance. For some women, it's millions. And from my experience, especially when I lived in LA, I really saw the two sides to it. I saw the girls that were going after the guys with the Lamborghinis, with the status. And then I saw the girls who worked normal jobs in healthcare or, HR.
Teachers.
And honestly, the girls that were going after the millionaires and the status, they weren't more attractive. Mm-hmm. They weren't nicer people. The opposite, if anything.
Yeah.
It was more just that they had this self-belief of, I'm one of those girls and I date those guys, even though deep down there was nothing about them that was actually more desirable from a man's perspective.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Do you think men who are, I imagine you work with some quite high net worth guys, do you find that men in those types of circles sometimes struggle to find the more regular, down-to-earth girl?
Not necessarily. I think that has more to do with what they're seeking and who they think they want to attract than actually where they are on the status sort of pendulum.
I suppose it also depends on, does your money inform your social life, right? If every weekend for you is the table with the bottle service, then yeah, you're going to be around those types of women all the time. But there's nothing to stop any man of any wealth just going to a run club or going to a typical coffee shop where nobody knows who you are.
Yeah.
Speaking of run clubs, this seems to be like the new way to meet people. That and pickleball are in
so
many
popular,
ways.
yeah.
Yeah, and they kind of sports or dating events masquerading as sports. There are any places that are not the typical place, not the bar, not the club, where guys are missing on the opportunity to meet great women?
I truly think any place that you're already spending time or you enjoy spending time can be a place to meet women. Just depending on what that location is may affect how you go about it and your approach. So if you're at yoga, your approach is going to need to be very different than if you're at a bar. You're going to need to establish more trust first. You're going to need to build more of a connection. It's less socially acceptable to ask somebody out, so you need to be more cautious about doing it. But I think the best places to meet people you want to date are going to be places that you like to spend time, because seemingly they like to spend that time there too. So you're going to have that in common.
Yeah, I think that even comes down to the types of bars and coffee shops that you hang out in. You know, if I go to the coffee shop where all the baristas have tattoos and piercings and they're playing Slipknot on the stereo, probably not going to be my type of woman, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, if I go to like Ralph's Coffee, then maybe. Yeah. I wanted to talk about texting a bit, and I know that you have your texting guide. Mm-hmm. Why is it necessary for guys to learn how to text? What are some of the big mistakes that they're making and how it's kind of wrecking their dating life?
Yeah. I think the biggest mistake I see guys doing when it comes to texting is texting too much and texting themselves out of a date. You're much more likely to text yourself out of a date than into a date. Less is more. Use texting for logistics, use texting for communication, but don't try and get to know somebody and form a connection over text. And I think a lot of people get that wrong. And it ends up being a turnoff. You lose so much nuance and context texting. So you're much more likely to say something that is like off-putting or she takes the wrong way, when if you'd had that conversation in person, it would have been totally fine. Sort of like going back to what I was saying about having a photo with guns on a dating app. She might be fine with guns in a certain context, but seeing you flashing it on the dating app is going to be unattractive.
Yeah, I didn't know that was allowed actually, but I've never seen it.
Guns on a dating app?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
probably
cool.
because you're looking at women.
Oh yeah, that's true. I'm not seeing any gun-toting gals on Bumble. Let's talk about something that bizarrely I feel like people never talk about on these types of conversations, which is romance and seduction. People seem to be, especially men, we're so fixated on optimizing and strategy and how we meet people. Mm-hmm. But what actually is going to help people land the relationship and make somebody fall in love with them a bit more complex? What role do you think it plays to be romantic and seductive? And what are some of the ways that you encourage guys to express that side?
Yeah, so I think stepping back, you can be a really great guy and bring so much to the table, but if she doesn't feel any romantic chemistry from you, it's probably not going to lead to a romantic relationship. Boyfriend, girlfriend, exclusivity, marriage. So that absolutely does play into whether or not she views you as a potential partner. And there are different ways to do that at different stages in the relationship. On a first date, that literally might just look like initiating some amount of physical touch, having a hug at the beginning, going for a kiss at the end, touching her knee, paying her appropriate compliments. And then as your relationship develops, obviously what is needed to establish that romance and that connection and that seduction changes. So it could be a thoughtful gift, bringing her flowers, escalating things physically in the bedroom. It just really depends on what stage in the relationship you're in. But that's something that guys I work with struggle with. They hear maybe a lot like, you're a really great guy, but I just didn't feel the romantic connection. And so there are things you can do to make the romantic connection, like things I just mentioned, stronger.
I heard you talking on Chris Williamson's podcast about the 6 touch rule. Could you explain to us a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, I think I don't actually remember exactly what I said on his podcast, but it was probably something along the lines of a date without any physical touch is a meeting, not a date. Yes. And so I'll set goals for my clients like, hey, can you have 6 physical touches throughout the date? That can be like a hug in the beginning. Okay, guiding her to her seat as you sit down at the bar, touching her knee to emphasize a point, touching her hand because you compliment her bracelet, and making sure that you're having some amount of physical touch throughout the date to help create that chemistry.
Yeah, I have been doing that since I listened to that, and it's been great. I make 6 points of physical touch, and then I just leave. I'm like, right, well, been
okay.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. See you
I've
next
done
time.
6. Yeah, Blaine will be pretty proud of me for this. No, it also makes you realize that some environments are naturally easier to create those moments of touch than others. Whenever I book a dinner date, and this is a great tip for anybody, I always request a booth so that we can sit next to each other. Because sitting opposite each other, firstly, it's hard to touch somebody, right? You have to reach across, and that's just unnatural, or you'd have to play footsie, and it can be a bit corny. that if you can sit next to each other, you don't have to be, squished up right against each other, but it's much easier, as you say, to put your hand on her knee, to put your hand on her shoulder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like a round table or a square table where you can sit kitty corner makes it a lot easier. So to your point, some date environments are going to be better than others.
Yeah, tip the host. It helps.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with the chocolates, the flowers, the romantic gestures, the gifts, I think a lot of men are worried that they're going to come across as what's now called a simp. Mm-hmm. But I encourage that kind of thing because I think that's one of the most wonderful things that love is all about. At what stage should a man feel like that's appropriate to be doing for a woman that he's courting?
Yeah, so time and place is everything. There's no hard and fast rules about how to escalate or when to escalate or what's appropriate. But I would say gifts, until you've been on at least a handful of dates, any amount of gifting is probably signals overinvestment and is not appropriate. But you can start small there with small gestures and increase from there. So it's really dependent on like what the gift is and also how strong your connection is, both ways.
Yeah, and I think that going too heavy on the gifts can actually be a turnoff at some point.
Totally.
I went on a date with a woman who told me, we were talking about this topic. This is a problem, Blaine. I'm so into the topic of dating and relationships that I want to talk about it during the first date. But anyway, she told me that she once went on a date. This was in Europe. And when at the end of the date, he gave her an envelope and said, "Oh, this is your taxi fare," right? Then she gets in the back of the taxi, opens it, 500 euros. Which basically $500.
Yeah.
And she said, I just felt like a prostitute.
Yeah.
Like he'd non-consensually made me a call girl for the night.
That's so bizarre.
I know, but this was not the only story she had like that.
Although I would take 500 euros. But...
No, she spent it for sure, yeah.
But she's like, what a freak. That would make me feel cheap. Okay, well, at least I got 500 euros.
Hey, if somebody did that to me, I'd probably go buy a new suit.
On a dating app?
I don't know. I didn't ask too many
questions. I have questions. I'm like, did you meet on like Seeking or like, sugar daddy?
She said I don't have a sugar daddy, but anyway. I have a few questions as well about the woman's perspective that I actually got from people who are in my online community.
Cool.
One of them was this. Why do some women let their guard down and sleep with a man on the first date while others make men wait? Is it based on something the man does or doesn't do during the date?
No, I think that probably has more to do with any one woman's personal boundaries. Mm-hmm. Surely, obviously, there are things like, a man can do to make a woman feel more or less comfortable and make that more or less likely. But I think sleeping with somebody on the first date probably has more to do with the woman's comfort level overall with that than any particular date.
I agree. I think this is one difference between men and women is a woman might have a particular standard of, if I like the guy, I'll sleep with him on the first date. Or if I like him, I'll sleep with him on the second date. Men, it's more the opposite. It's more, I like to have sex on the first date, and whether she's into me or not is not really part of the question for me. It's more that this is the mission and we'll try and accomplish the mission.
Yeah, or they're going to be down if she's down.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. Do you think that it's good for men to have a boundary when it comes to physical intimacy, or to make people, not make her wait, but to, decide that I'm going to save this for the second date, the third date?
Yeah, I actually do for a variety of reasons, but I think allowing the emotional connection with somebody, especially, I guess it depends what your goals are. If your goals are just to get laid, then obviously, no, go for it whenever it's possible. But if your goal is to establish a longer term relationship or a commitment, then I absolutely think there are benefits for both men and women to allow the emotional connection to grow before advancing the physical connection. I think when you advance the physical connection without the emotional connection, you're much more likely for either party to either feel icky about it and then decide, they're not going to take this seriously anyway, I'm just going to move on, or to feel oh, that was awkward or it wasn't that good. And since they don't have the emotional connection to say, hey, but I actually really like this person, I'm going to give it another shot, they're more likely to just move on.
Yeah, and without the emotional connection, that increases the chances of it not being very good, which means that you're more likely to just say, let's forget this whole thing anyway.
Totally.
Do you think there is a point, aside from, Christians who are waiting for marriage or people with religious beliefs about this, do you think there is a point at which it's it's been going on for a while now, to not escalate things physically, and you should discover that side of your relationship?
I don't think there's any hard and fast rule around physicality. I know plenty of happily married couples who did have sex on the first date. And likewise, I know plenty of happily married couples who waited, a very long time before crossing that. So it's really what both parties are comfortable with. And it has more to do with what we talked about before about the emotional connection and when both people are ready.
Yeah. Okay, here's a second question from the community. Can a woman sense if a man is faking confidence? If so, what can a not confident man do to authentically demonstrate confidence during the date?
So what I will say is I feel like women have a sixth sense for underlying emotion generally. So that's why if you're down on yourself, she is going to pick up on it. If you are blindly just going for her phone number because you want something from her, you want that from her, she is going to sense that. If you are not confident, she is going to sense that. With that in mind, fake it till you make it. Confidence is something that comes from practice, and you can make, like, you physically holding yourself more confidently with your shoulders back and making eye contact and making yourself do that is going to make you more confident, even if you feel like you're quote faking it. So I think there's not like, you don't have to feel like perfectly confident in order to have a thriving dating life. But you do need to come across as confident, and just acting in a way that demonstrates confidence will help you be more confident.
I think that about the clothing, and I consider myself to be fairly confident, but put me in a baggy t-shirt, jeans and sneakers and throw me in a club, I'm not going to feel very confident. It's okay that we do things that make us feel more confident. That's not an unhealthy trait. There's inner confidence,
good, yeah.
But yeah, what do you think is a good sort of level of outfit and effort for a man on a first date? Let's say it's dinner. Let's say it's a fairly nice restaurant.
Yeah, then I think, slacks, like a nice pants. Could be nice jeans too. I'm totally okay with a nice sneaker, like a clean leather sneaker, but also a loafer, a Chelsea boot, obviously depending on the time of year and where you live. And then for the top, it's so dependent on your style, but not a t-shirt with like a stretched out neckline and faded and armpit stains. Like, I've seen really nice t-shirts that are crisp and clean and could totally be appropriate in that scenario. I've also seen a nice button down that would be appropriate in that scenario. And then to your point, if a suit is what you rock and what you feel the best in and that's your style, go for it. It's really like, the key is less like looking like you are super stylish and in the know stylishly, and more that your clothes are clean and they fit well and you feel great in them.
Yeah, I also think you have to dress for the type of person that you're looking to attract.
Yeah.
If you want somebody who's an outdoor type person and they don't give a shit about style, then yeah, it doesn't really matter too much. But if you want somebody, personally, if a woman turns up wearing jeans on the date, forget it. That's just not me,
Yeah.
That's never going to be a match for me. So
Yeah.
All of my dating app profile pics are pretty formal, but that just sets the tone for what I'm looking for.
Totally.
Yeah, it depends on the city as well. I'm not sure how well this would fly in Texas, but I'll have to come down and find out at some point.
Yeah, come on down.
Yeah. Let me see if we have any more. We've done this one. Okay. Something that's very important to me and that I talk about a lot on my channel is chivalry. Do you think that chivalry is still appreciated in 2025?
Yeah, I think it just shows up a bit differently, and the expectations around it have changed than if it was 1955. But especially with high quality women, so women who you would perceive, as someone most people want to date. They are attractive, they are mature, they are intelligent, they are respectful. They are going to appreciate chivalry, and that can look like opening the door, just having thoughtful conversations, sending a nice follow-up text. It doesn't mean you're like necessarily laying out the red carpet and bringing a dozen roses on the first date and booking a 5-course meal.
Wait, Blaine, don't tell them all of my secrets.
It can be the small things, and I think it actually goes a really long way.
Do you think, I know that you mostly deal with men, but I'm sure you talk about this kind of thing with your girlfriends all the time. Do you find that women are actually wanting men to be more chivalrous on the whole?
Yeah, I would say yes. And again, that doesn't mean like overinvestment in buying gifts. It means the little things like opening the door, being thoughtful, picking up the tab on a first date.
Yeah. Okay, here's a question for you. I agree that men should get the tab on the first date. Not even something I want to talk about. But as we go down to, let's say, 3, 4, 5 dates, then it gets to the point where, you know, you're almost entering relationship territory and you're thinking, well, I don't want to set the precedent that for the rest of our relationship, I'm going to pay for everything, because that's not sustainable for me. How do you go about having that conversation or reestablishing that equality in your relationship?
Yeah, I think obviously in an ideal world, the woman inserts herself at some point and is like, hey, let me get this one, or like, you got dinner, like, let me take us to dessert or for drinks after, or whatever it may be. That's like the ideal scenario. But if you find yourself in a situation where the woman is never offering, never reaching for the bill, you can definitely, it doesn't mean it's hopeless. Like, you can definitely say something like, hey, I'm super excited to take you out again. I've got this one. Like, how about you take me out next time? And let her plan the date so she can also plan something within her budget. I think most women who are open to sharing some responsibility over finances will do that themselves. And then likewise, the type of woman who has a problem with you saying something like that or doesn't ever offer, she might be looking for somebody who is going to be the one who pays for everything. And that might just mean she's not a good fit for you.
Yeah. How aware do you think women are of a man's financial status during the dating stages?
They're aware.
Especially, you know, I mean, for me, I think people don't have a clue because my job is so ambiguous. I dress very well. I live in a really nice building. They don't necessarily know that it's a studio apartment, you know? So I'm always wondering, like, I wonder how much money they think I earn.
Yeah. I think, you know, a lot of how you show up and like the type of dates you take her on and what you wear will give her some sense of that. And then like we talked about before, some women are going to care a lot about it and some women aren't going to care at all.
That's true. And then a couple more questions before we finish up. Do you think that there are things that women could change to give men more of a fair shot in the dating pool? Any toxic behaviors or patterns that have emerged as a result of dating apps and everything else?
Can you rephrase it? What do you mean?
Sure. Do you think that women are sometimes being overly harsh in their criteria or the way that they select men, perhaps as a result of dating apps?
For sure. I mean, I think both men and women fall into that. And it's sort of, you know, I alluded to it before when talking about how dating had become globalized. People have a lot more options. So I think they often have this idea that, oh, I need someone who checks every single box, or, hey, look at this person, he's so hot or she's so hot. Like, that's the level at which I deserve, rather than being maybe like happy with things that are closer to home or like more in line with what they actually bring to the table. So yeah, I think that is more prevalent now than it was before because of online dating and because of social media. And so I think everyone, if I could like give one piece of advice to both men and women, is to give more people a chance. I think a lot of times what women will do on a first date, especially with the type of men I work with who are really like nice guys and great guys and bring a lot to the table, but maybe aren't like nailing marketing themselves or nailing creating that romantic chemistry, is they think, oh, the date was fun, but you know, I didn't feel the spark, so I'm going to move on, as opposed to being like, okay, the date was fun, so I'm going to take a second date and see if some of that chemistry can grow.
Yeah. Do you think that chemistry can be created?
Totally. Like if you show up on a date and like to the touch point we were talking about, and you don't ever touch this person, and you don't create any chemistry, and you don't select a sexy environment for the date, and you don't lean in and hold eye contact, that's not going to feel, chemistry doesn't just magically happen. But if you do those things, there's a possibility you could create the chemistry. I'm not saying anyone can create chemistry with anyone. I don't think that's true, but you can certainly help facilitate it or not by your actions.
Yeah, you're right. You can make an environment that's conducive to it. Personally, I stopped doing coffee shop dates because I just noticed that for me, it really wasn't a sexy environment. It's right. The guy is working on his laptop next to us.
Totally.
And I realized that didn't work for me. And I chose to just go on fewer, more high quality dates rather than this huge quantity of coffee twice a week with somebody new.
Yeah, I say that a lot. Like if you're someone who struggles to create romantic connection, meeting in the daytime for a walk or for coffee probably isn't going to suit you best.
Yeah, or have a few Negronis beforehand, and then
Exactly.
you'll be
Or
much more
Shirley
in the mood.
Temples, whatever. Yeah.
I think maybe this is where the ick comes from as well. We all have turns-ons and turn-offs, but I do also think that the ick, when it comes from women, it can sometimes be an excuse for just being emotionally unavailable, or, with the attachment style theory, talking about having an avoidant attachment style. Therefore, it's easier if I get the ick with everybody than ever catch feelings. Do you think that's what's going on?
I think that's certainly possible in some situations. I think sometimes women might actually get the ick, and sometimes they're just looking for a reason it can't work out.
One final question that I would love to leave the guys with would be from you, in terms of both his product and his marketing. What would be 3 things that a guy can do to improve his dating life in a well-rounded way?
I would say number 1 is spend less time online and more time just offline cultivating community and social relationships, where that could lead to meeting more women. Invest in your image and style. So you want to look the part. Again, that doesn't mean GQ model, but it means looking well put together. And then lastly, I'd say put yourself out there more. So take more shots on goal, ask more women out, go on more dates, and don't be scared of rejection.
More shots on goal. I like
Yeah.
it. Put it in sports terms, and then men can understand it much more easily.
Exactly. You missed 100% of the shots you don't take.
Exactly. Blaine, thank you very much for making time. I think this has been really interesting and very useful as well to everybody on the dating market.
Totally. I had a great time chatting with you, and I hope this helps some of those listeners out there land the girl that they're looking for.